Hello again. This is Andy Vining reading My Mother's Diaries, Episode 7. We start today on November 1948. November opened with foul weather, rain sweeping across the fields from morning to night. And the children were home for half term, but this filled the house with noise despite the gloom. I went into Winchester for new shoes, while John attended lodge, and there was an uneasy talk of foot and mouth in Salisbury. Never a pleasant news when one keeps cattle. There were brighter interludes. I went dancing at the Ritchie Hall, though the gramophone misbehaved and caused some disruption. John attended Gromore that evening and returned very happy, having won cups for highest points in the best farm competition for corn and root crops. He did smell of beer, so I believe he had celebrated rather well indeed. It is very pleasant to have one's efforts recognised by one's peers. Strawberry planting began earnest in the garden. Tidy rows firmed carefully into the soil, ready for the spring. Doug and Marjorie called in, and Joan Beaton bought a firework parcel for us. Heather's photograph was sent off to Alf as he had asked for some, and I finished planting the strawberries. On Bella's birthday, I walked round to Beechcroft to see her, wishing her a happy birthday. Later, returning in the car with John. Guy Fawkes' preparations brought great excitement. We made a guy ready for the children, and they went to Hatley's firework display on Battersea Road with Uvie and Joan. It was a wet sort of evening, but the bonfires burned brightly and fireworks kept spirits high. The following evening we had our own bonfire here at the farm. Nora and family came, Jess Rothry for friends, Joan and Les Beaton, Joan and Uvie Hatley, and afterwards we all crowded into the kitchen for eggs and bacon. Bet and Fred arrived home for the weekend as well, and the house was full again. It was a less glamorous side as well. John and I had to clean out the chicken house, never pleasant, but very, very necessary to do. Ethel Westbury called in for a chat, and later we had dinner at the Beatons. Joan gave us fresh salmon. It was really, really lovely. On Friday, we went to a ball in Eastleigh Town Hall, seeing many of our old friends. Another lovely evening. Janet was poorly for the day, but I cycled down to see Peggy Inge's new baby. Dear little Penelope Jane. What a sweet little girl she is. I went to the St. Boniface Bazaar on my bike on the way back, but the chain broke, so I had to walk home. What a long push that was. It was Mother's birthday that same day, so we went round in the evening for eggs and bacon, and had a simple but cheerful evening. There were perms at the hairdressers, furniture moved at Beechcroft. We bought Father's desk to the farm and put it in the hall. John at last finished his mangle carting, building a huge clamp by the elm trees and covering it carefully with straw against the frost. Good stock of winter feed secured for the cattle, and good to have that heavy job behind him. Mr. Cross, the poultryman, dined with us. John attended Hursley Lodge and bought me a small early Christmas present of a bottle of wine he'd won in the raffle. Mother's lodgers arrived, bringing new faces into Beechcroft. A quiet evening, we lit the dining room fire and read together. And then at 10 o'clock, the wireless announced that Princess Elizabeth had had a son, Charles, a spark of national excitement in an otherwise dark month. A future king announced into homes warmed by coal and log fires. Rain returned on the next day, so I had to dry the washing on the rack in the kitchen ceiling. John went to the Lodge of Instruction in Hursley. He also went to his Gromore meeting one night, but the car lights failed, so John Dunford had to bring him home. John came in for coffee before his journey back to Bishopstoke. We arranged to have a pig killed, the start of the winter meat, and John went down to the abattoir and collected the offal. Then Norman Cooper came in to collect his share of it. I started making the Christmas cake, and the Beatons joined us for liver and bacon from our very own pig. It was wonderful. Trips to Southampton bought a pink frock and platform shoes for me, and Mrs. Cole gave me a blue coat for Heather, which was very kind of her. John went to football as usual and to his Gromore quiz. And then on the 22nd of November, it was our wedding anniversary, and Mother and Bella came for tea. We had a nice sponge, small gifts exchanged. John gave me a frock and shoes, and I gave him some sherry brandy. In the evening, we went to the Potter's Heron at the top end of Hook Road for dinner with the Beatons. It was a lovely evening again. At the Growmore, we won 4 awards for our eggs, so all the careful grading and selection has paid off with Mr. Cross's help. We went dancing at the Ritchie Hall, and that continued with the children, and Jennifer went out with Marjorie Haskell. Then came a fright. We lost Heather. We don't know where she was. We searched everywhere, behind the granary, in the chicken houses. She'd wandered off all on her own, and eventually we found her out on the Hursley Road. Goodness knows how she managed that. So John promptly erected a fence to prevent any repeat adventures for Heather. 12 dozen eggs were sent to the packing station in Pine Road, our first proper sale from our Rhode Island at Reds. A really good start. I went to Beechcroft, and then on the way back went to Joan Beaton's to inspect the kitchen chairs Joan had thought would suit us. They will look very well in our kitchen at the farm. Jean bought me my first pair of nylons. They were lovely, such a novelty, and I began making a new ready-cut rug at last. We had the Gromore dinner in Eastleigh, and I found myself beside the Lord Lieutenant of Hampshire and Mr. Gregory. Quite something for a farming housewife. I was very honoured to have the pride of place at the table. It was a wonderful evening. The next day was really foggy on our drive at the weekend when we had supper with the Coates at their lovely new house in Highfield. And while there, we discussed St. Provost School for Andrew. It was suggested by Mrs. St. John, though he is still far too young for boarding school yet, and I don't really like the idea of him going away. Christmas shopping took up an entire day in Southampton. Mother and Bella spent the day at the farm babysitting Heather for us. I then went dancing at the Ritchie Hall for the last time for a while, as this will be, and then it will start again in the new year, I hope. We then had supper again at the Beatons. Joan had done tongue sandwiches this time. They were lovely. November had drawn the farm inwards, strawberries planted, pigs killed, eggs winning prizes, escaping children and fences erected, Christmas cake baked, offal divided, frost and fog settling across the fields, now mostly bare. Fires lit, rugs begun, nylons treasured, winter edging deeper. And so we began to December 1948. It began, unfortunately, with Andrew home, suffering from a bad cold. Joan arrived with some glacé cherries for us, a small but bright luxury, and we had tea together. And I then planted the last bulbs before the ground hardened, ready for the spring flowering. We went and saw the dancing at the sanatorium with the children, and it went off very well, again enjoyed by the staff and the inmates there. Then there was the young farmers' dance in Romsey, a very enjoyable evening indeed, all in our glad rags. John went to football as usual, and then he went on to the pitches. But with all the colds and flu about, the children missed a party, so we stayed at home and made do with boiled eggs and jelly for tea. Simple comforts, and everybody was very happy. I made Janet a new skirt. It was cut from an old costume, making do as one must. I went shopping in Southampton for more Christmas presents, and when I got home I drew a pheasant ready for supper. And Joan and Les joined us for that supper, and we had the pheasant, peas, roast potatoes, followed by raspberries with cream. A really lovely December meal. I did a lot of darning in the evening, sat beside the log fire in the dining room, while there was a wild wind and rain outside, quietly listening to the radio. I made the Christmas puddings, a job I love to do, and I put them in the pantry ready to mature for Christmas. I also went shopping in Winchester for more presents. And poor Auntie Bella was unwell, so her and Mother didn't come to tea, and we just sat and listened to The Paragon on the wireless, a really good show. Heather woke crying in the night with toothache, and that was a bit of a worry, but it seemed to go away after a while. But then, the next day, she fell down the stairs. My heart was in my mouth. Children, what to do with them? Though she seemed unharmed beyond tears. John had to go to Weeks and Greens for the rent audits in Southampton, and I was able to collect the ham we were keeping in a large fridge at Beechcroft and brought it home. I packed a load of the children's Christmas presents in the evening when they were all in bed. Got to keep these a secret. John went up to Reading for the Jersey sale. He didn't buy anything, but learned a lot about the prices and the cattle in the sale for the future. And John and I spent a lot of the evenings writing Christmas cards. It's a big job for friends and family that has to be done. And we wrote small messages in each card wishing everybody well. I managed to plant some rose and fruit bushes in the garden as well, but it was really cold with very sharp wind, so not a very pleasant job, and I didn't really enjoy doing that. We managed to pluck the first 24 chickens that had been ordered for Christmas. And up in the rickyard, the barley was being thrashed. The steady clatter of tractor and thrashing machine echoing across the farm, very noisy. But it was a big, exciting job when it all goes well, and it did this year without any mishaps. The house grew very busy, with callers coming for their chickens for Christmas. Mother and Bella departed for Betty's, and some of the workers on the poultry stayed in the evening for supper. Hot bacon all round. That pig has done us very well. Chickens were drawn and dressed almost endlessly, and all the customers came and left very happy with their birds all trussed and dressed for them. Christmas evening came in a whirl of fatigue and laughter. After all the work, we were able to have a nice evening with friends and family round the fire in the dining room, with a lovely Christmas tree and all the presents underneath waiting for the children. Christmas Day itself was warm and simple. We had a goose for dinner, children delighted with their presents, and a quiet evening at home. Boxing Day we went to Romsey to see the Hursley Hunt and the hounds together in the square, a wonderful sight, and that evening we had a rare early night. The next day was John's birthday, and he was not milking, so we got up a bit later than usual and had a quiet day. Then we had visitors for tea, a lovely evening with all the family and friends and lots of laughter. Unfortunately, Heather was bad with earache again, so she went to bed quietly, but she slept okay. The foul weather persisted right up to New Year's Eve, with wind and rain still sweeping the fields. John and I went into Southampton, where I bought a new coat in the sales, my Christmas present from him. And on New Year's Eve, we went to the Beatons' party, a lovely gathering of so many friends that we'd met over the year, and we did not get home until the small hours, and so 1948 ended. We remember the fields drilled and harvested, strawberries planted, chickens plucked and drawn by the dozen, barley thrashed, pigs killed, cows milked, harvest gathered. The Jersey herd begun, running water and gas at the last in the farmhouse, eggs shown and winning prizes and sent to the packing station, bulbs set against frost, puddings boiled, geese carved, mud endured. During this year, friendships have been made and strengthened. The Beatons, the Parkers, Mrs. St. John, the Sinclairs, the Inges, the Hatleys, the Deans and the Coates, and many others, all woven now into our daily life. Weddings celebrated, babies born, royal news announced, though through rain and frost and fog and mud, and burning hot sunshine sometimes, the farm has held us steady. And the year begins as it began, with work done. The family gathered close, and we shut the door on 1948, not with a bang, but with a steady sound of work done, fires banked, and a family holding together as winter gathers in. It was a year of mud and marvels, of hard work and small shining joys. On paper the days may look ordinary, eggs counted, mud endured, puddings boiled, but living through them is something else entirely. The fields lie bare now. In winter the sheds are quieter but warmed by the cattle lying in their stalls. The farmhouse warmer at last, and water in the house from taps and not from churns, and beyond the gate a new year awaits, because when a new year begins on a farm, it never arrives empty-handed, because next week we turn the page to January 1949. Thank you for listening to my mother's diaries. They are all done with love.